A defense of vital economic development.
You must understand that significant damage is done with their objections.
Or corporate bullying.
They're asking for 200 million rand, none of which any of us have.
What has been called the biggest SLAPP suit in South African history has now been withdrawn. In February 2021, Century Property Developments brought a punishing 197 million rand suit against the Greater Kyalami Conservancy, GEKCO, and its chair, Kristen Callison.
It basically sues me in my personal capacity, as well as the Conservancy, to reclaim alleged damages for delays due to the objections that were lodged during the public participation process.
GEKCO objected to developments north of Johannesburg, which it said encroached on sensitive wetlands.
This is the subject of the court case. This is Riversand, so if you look there...
Century, owned by property mogul Mark Corbett, claims that GEKCO's objections caused years of costly delays.
The figure of 197 million is very symbolic because that is the value of the economic activity that's been removed in this area. Riversands at present is only about 15% developed. But if it wasn't for GEKCO, imagine where we would be. You know, I think we'd be close to 70, 80% developed.
But GEKCO and its supporters saw the case as an attempt to intimidate and undermine, in other words, strategic litigation against public participation, or SLAPP.
This was a SLAPP suit because it was what the Constitutional Court has referred to as an abuse of process. Any corporation may go to court to defend its good name, its reputation, but it becomes an abuse of process when it is done in order to suppress or intimidate activists. There's an inequality of arms, if you could call it that. It is not done to vindicate rights.
GEKCO approached Asina Loyiko, an anti-SLAPP advocacy campaign. Leanne Govan-Sammy spoke to us on the movement's behalf.
You need expert legal defense. You also need to pay attention to the kind of emotional distress that this kind of matter causes. And quite importantly, how do you ensure that the essential work that they were doing at GEKCO could continue?
For more than 3 years, Century did nothing to pursue the suit.
The longer you drag a defendant through court, the more costs are incurred by those defendants. And you prevent them from doing the essential work that they may be doing as activists in a community.
Meanwhile, in a separate case 2 years ago, the Constitutional Court handed down a landmark judgment outlining the elements of a SLAPP suit. Finally, last month, Century agreed to withdraw its claim.
It really feels fantastic. It's wonderful to know that that's not hanging over my head and our head as the Conservancy. And we hope that people will think twice before suing us or other environmental organizations in the future.
Mark Corbett told us GEKCO lodged an application seeking to have all Century's approved developments declared invalid. When GEKCO withdrew that case, Century withdrew its damages claim as a show of good faith. But GEKCO insists the application sought recognition from the city of Johannesburg that GEKCO has the right to object to development applications. It was settled last January when the city confirmed GEKCO's legal standing.
Even though the developments were allowed to go ahead, it's also important to recognize that the parallel legal process, which resulted in GEKCO challenging the city of Johannesburg, was also really important for public participation processes.
Unfortunately, the developments have had the impacts that we were concerned about. We have seen that some of the wetlands have been impacted.
Century says its developments are real-world examples of inclusive economic growth that protect the wetlands better than the Conservancy does. It accuses GEKCO of opposing all development to preserve an elitist lifestyle, but GEKCO believes its mission has been validated.
We believe that the intent of the SLAPP suit was to prevent us from objecting and using our voice going forward in future applications, which we've continued to do. And the city has reduced densities and made some amendments that we were asking for. And so we are continuing to use our voice to ensure that the protection in the Kyalami area takes place.
This is a fundamental right that you're talking about. This is entrenched in our constitution. This is the point of having a public process.